Vladimir Putin does not need to raise his voice to make the world pay attention. A warning from the Kremlin, a sudden military movement, or even a long silence can force governments to ask the same question. What will Putin do next? For more than 2 decades, he has built a reputation as a leader who is patient, secretive, and willing to take risks others might avoid. Rivals inside Russia learned to fear crossing him. Foreign leaders learned that ignoring him could be dangerous. But Putin was not born powerful, and Russia was not always feared under his rule. So how did a former KGB officer become one of the world's most feared leaders? The answer begins with one lesson he learned very early: never appear weak. Putin grew up in a tough neighborhood in post-war Leningrad, where smaller boys could easily be pushed around. He learned early that looking vulnerable could make you a target. At 12, he began practicing Judo and Sambo. The training gave him more than fighting skills. It taught him discipline, patience, and control. Putin later carried one lesson from the mat into politics. You do not always defeat a stronger opponent by attacking first. Sometimes you wait for him to lose his balance. Putin's next lesson came from the world of intelligence. After graduating from university, he joined the KGB, the Soviet Union's powerful security agency. There, he learned that strength was not only about weapons or force. It was also about understanding people. A good intelligence officer had to watch carefully, hide his own intentions, notice weaknesses, and wait for the right moment to act. Putin spent years learning how to gather information and stay calm under pressure. Those habits would later become part of his political style. He rarely revealed everything he was thinking, and opponents often had to guess what he might do next. But soon, Putin would face something even the KGB could not control: the collapse of the world he served. Then came a moment Putin never forgot. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Communist governments across Eastern Europe began collapsing, and the Soviet system started losing control. Putin watched as the powerful state he served suddenly looked weak and uncertain. Soon, the Soviet Union itself disappeared. For him, this was more than a political change. It was a lesson about power. When a state becomes weak, others stop fearing it. That idea would shape many of the decisions he made later. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia entered one of the most painful periods in its modern history. The economy fell into crisis, prices rose quickly, factories struggled, and many families lost savings they had built for years. At the same time, a small group of businessmen became enormously rich and gained influence over politics and the media. To many Russians, the state looked weak, chaotic, and unable to control its own future. Internationally, Russia had also lost much of the power once held by the Soviet Union. Putin saw this period as a warning. If Russia wanted respect again, it first had to restore order at home, and soon he would get the chance to help do exactly that. Putin entered politics without looking like a future president. In St. Petersburg, he worked quietly behind the scenes before moving to Moscow in 1996. There, he rose through government positions with surprising speed. He was disciplined, loyal, and rarely attracted unnecessary attention. Senior officials began to see him as someone who could handle difficult problems without creating chaos. In 1999, he was appointed Prime Minister. Then, on the final day of the year, the door to ultimate power suddenly opened. On December 31, 1999, Boris Yeltsin suddenly resigned, and Vladimir Putin became acting president of Russia. Most people outside the government barely knew him. He had no long public career, no famous political movement, and no powerful image yet. But Putin understood that Russia was tired of chaos. He presented himself as the opposite, calm, controlled, and decisive. He promised order, stability, and a stronger state. For many Russians, that message was exactly what they wanted to hear after the difficult 1990s. But becoming president was only the beginning. Putin still had to prove that he could control a country filled with violence, powerful businessmen, and deep political uncertainty. Putin's first major test came with the war in Chechnya. Russia had already suffered years of violence and instability there, and Putin chose a hard military response. His message was simple. The state would not retreat. The conflict was brutal and caused enormous human suffering, but politically it helped shape Putin's image as a decisive leader. To many Russians exhausted by chaos, he appeared to offer something the 1990s had lacked: authority. And that image of strength was only beginning. In the 1990s, a small group of businessmen known as oligarchs had become incredibly rich and politically powerful. Some controlled major companies, television networks, and had close connections to the Kremlin. When Putin became president, many believed he would be another leader they could influence. They were wrong. Putin moved to reduce their political power and made it clear that enormous wealth could survive. But openly challenging the Kremlin carried serious risks. The clearest warning came with Mikhail Khodorkovsky, one of Russia's richest men who was arrested in 2003 after challenging the Kremlin. His fall sent a message across the country. Under Putin, money could buy influence, but it could not be allowed to rival the state. Putin understood that power was not only about controlling officials or businessmen. It was also about controlling the story people saw. Under his rule, the Kremlin increased its influence over major television networks, while independent media faced growing pressure. Supporters argued this helped restore stability after the chaos of the 1990s. Critics saw something more dangerous: fewer voices challenging the government. Either way, Putin was building more than political power. He was shaping the image of Russia and of himself. By this point, Putin had weakened many of the people who once seemed powerful enough to challenge the Kremlin. But fear does not always come from punishment. Sometimes it comes from uncertainty. Business leaders, officials, and political figures had to think carefully about how far they could go, because the limits were not always clear. Loyalty mattered, but so did knowing when not to challenge the system. This made Putin's power harder to confront. People did not always know exactly where the red line was until someone crossed it. and that uncertainty could be more effective than constant force. But controlling rivals inside Russia was only the first stage. Putin now wanted the outside world to stop seeing Russia as weak. In 2007, Putin delivered a speech in Munich that surprised many Western leaders. He openly criticized a world dominated by the United States and argued that Russia would no longer accept being treated as a weaker power. The speech sounded like a warning. Moscow wanted a greater voice, and Putin was prepared to challenge the existing order. At first, these were only words. But soon, Russia would begin showing that its new confidence was backed by military force. In 2008, Putin's warning was followed by action. Tensions between Russia and Georgia exploded into a short but intense war over the regions of South Ossetia and Abkhazia. Russian forces moved quickly, pushing deep into Georgian territory before a ceasefire ended the main fighting. The conflict lasted only days, but its message was much larger. Russia was showing that it was willing to use military force to defend what it saw as its interests near its borders. For Western governments, this was a major signal that the Russia of the 1990s was gone. Putin had spent years demanding respect. Now he was proving that Moscow was prepared to take risks to get it. In 2014, Putin made a move that stunned the world. After political upheaval in Ukraine, Russian forces took control of Crimea, and Moscow soon annexed the peninsula after a disputed referendum rejected by Ukraine and most of the international community. Western countries responded with sanctions, but Putin did not reverse course. The message was clear. Russia was willing to accept serious economic and diplomatic costs to protect what the Kremlin saw as a vital strategic interest. By now, Putin had shown that Russia was willing to use military force. But another source of power came from uncertainty. Under his leadership, Russia combined traditional military strength with intelligence operations, cyber capabilities, energy pressure, diplomacy, and information campaigns. Not every accusation against Moscow has been proven, but the uncertainty itself can influence how opponents react. If leaders are never completely sure which tool Russia might use next, they are forced to prepare for several possibilities at once. That creates pressure before any action even begins. Putin understood a simple strategic idea. The most intimidating opponent is not always the one who attacks first, but the one who makes you constantly wonder what comes next. In 2015, Putin showed that Russia's ambitions reached far beyond its own neighborhood. Russian forces entered the war in Syria to support the government of Bashar al-Assad. The intervention helped Moscow become a major player in the Middle East and forced other powers to deal with Russia directly. Putin was sending another message. Russia could influence conflicts far from home. It no longer wanted simply to be invited to the table. It wanted to help decide what happened there. Behind Putin's political strategy stands one reality that changes every calculation. Russia is one of the world's largest nuclear powers. Putin did not create this arsenal, but under his leadership, nuclear weapons became an important part of Russia's message to its rivals. When tensions rise, even the possibility of escalation forces other governments to think carefully before acting. This does not mean nuclear war is likely, but the risk itself creates enormous caution. Putin understands that fear is strongest when the cost of a mistake could be unimaginable, and that gives Russia a form of influence far greater than conventional weapons alone. But soon, Putin would take a gamble that tested just how far that influence could really go. Then came Putin's biggest gamble. On February 24, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The invasion was intended to force a dramatic change in Ukraine and Europe's security order, but the war quickly became longer and more costly than Moscow appeared to expect. Ukraine resisted fiercely. Western countries imposed massive sanctions, and NATO increased its support for Kyiv. For the first time in years, Putin's image of control faced a dangerous question. Had his greatest show of strength also revealed the limits of Russian power? But Ukraine did not collapse. Its government remained in place, its military continued fighting, and millions of Ukrainians resisted the invasion. Western countries sent weapons, intelligence, and financial support, while sanctions increased pressure on Russia. The war that many expected to be decided quickly became a long and destructive conflict. At the same time, Finland and Sweden moved toward NATO, strengthening the alliance Putin had long criticized. This revealed an important limit to fear. Pressure can force opponents to hesitate, but it can also push them to unite. Putin had shown that Russia was willing to take enormous risks. Now the world was seeing that even a feared leader could face resistance he could not easily control. Many expected sanctions and isolation to badly weaken Russia, but the country did not collapse. Moscow redirected more trade toward China, India, and other non-Western partners, increased military production, and adapted parts of its economy to wartime conditions. Oil and gas revenues also continued to provide important support. But survival did not mean there was no cost. Russia still faced inflation, labor shortages, technological restrictions, and the growing burden of a long war. Years after the full-scale invasion began, the war still has no simple ending. Russian forces continue attacking across Ukraine, while Ukraine has increasingly used long-range drones to strike military, logistics, and energy targets deep inside Russia. Moscow keeps increasing pressure, but Kyiv continues to resist with Western support. Each additional year raises the cost in soldiers, money, weapons, and political risk for both sides. For Putin, the stakes are especially high. The war has become closely tied to his image of strength and Russia's place in the world. And that creates a dangerous question. The longer the conflict continues, does Putin appear more determined, or does every additional year reveal how difficult victory has become? So why is Putin feared? The answer is not one weapon, one war, or one decision. It is the combination of several things: control at home, patience under pressure, a willingness to take major risks, uncertainty about his next move, and Russia's military power. Together, these qualities make opponents think carefully before challenging him. Putin's strength comes not from being unpredictable all the time, but from making others believe that he may go further than they expect. But being feared is not the same as being strong. Fear can make opponents hesitate, but it can also make them prepare. Putin's actions have pushed neighboring countries to strengthen their defenses, encouraged NATO to expand, and brought Russia years of sanctions and international pressure. The war in Ukraine has shown the same contradiction. Russia remains powerful, but that power has come with enormous military, economic, and political costs. This is the danger of ruling through fear. Every move that intimidates an opponent may also give that opponent a reason to unite against you. Putin succeeded in making Russia impossible to ignore. But whether that has made Russia safer and stronger is a much harder question. Putin spent much of his career trying to reverse what he saw in the 1990s, a Russia that could be ignored. In that sense, he succeeded. No major discussion about European security can ignore Moscow today. But history may judge him by a different question. Did forcing the world to pay attention make Russia more secure, or simply make the confrontation around it more permanent? So, why did Vladimir Putin become one of the world's most feared leaders? Not because he was always the strongest man in the room, but because he learned how to make others calculate the cost of challenging him. Through patience, pressure, military power, and a willingness to take risks, he made Russia impossible to ignore, and forced rivals to think carefully before every move. But his story reveals a deeper truth. Fear can create respect, yet it can also create resistance. The more others fear you, the more they may prepare against you. That is the paradox at the heart of Putin's rule. So what do you think? Did Putin make Russia stronger or simply more feared? Write stronger or more feared in the comments.